For this video, we're going to be learning about the power of a quotient property. So this is kind of a continuation of the power of a power rule, but now we're looking at when there's also a quotient in there or a fraction. So first let's look at an example of this. So let's say I have 2/3 cubed. Well, we know that the cubed means that I'm really just multiplying 2/3 by itself 3 times. Well, now when I multiply across, I see I have 2 times 2 times 2. So I am multiplying 2 by itself 3 times, which is the same thing as 2 cubed, over 3 times itself 3 times, which is really the same thing as 3 cubed. So my new rule is when I have a quotient in here, or a fraction, for my power of a quotient property, I am going to multiply my exponent into the numerator and into the denominator. So let's go ahead and write that out. So if raising a power of a quotient, multiply the exponents of all bases in the numerator and denominator. So make sure we distribute the outer exponents to all exponent in the numerator and denominator. And we don't want to forget about those bases that have an exponent of 1. So for example, up here, this 2/3, that's really the same thing as 2 to the first power over 3 to the first power. So what I did was I multiplied 3 times 1 to get 3, and then 3 times 1 to get 3 as well. So let's go through some examples. So I want to simplify this. Right now I have x squared over y, and I'm raising that to the 4th power. And so what we've learned here is I'm going to multiply this outer exponent with all exponents in here, with all those bases in the numerator and in the denominator. My y does not have an exponent with it, but remember that just means there's really an exponent of 1. So I'm going to have 2 times 4 to get x to the 8th on top, over 4 times 1 to get y to the 4th on the bottom. And these are not the same base, so I can't simplify any further. So that means this is my final answer. Okay, let's try another one. So here I have a to the 4th over b to the negative 3rd raised to the negative 2nd power. So I'm going to distribute that exponent to both. So I have 4 times negative 2 to get negative 8 over b negative 3 times negative 2 to get positive 6. And now remember, we're not completely simplified unless all exponents are positive. Right now I have a negative exponent with my a, and so to make that positive, I'm going to cross the line and change the sign. So I'm going to move that a to the negative 8 to the bottom to make it positive a to the 8th. And since I moved everything from the top to the bottom, there's really just going to be a 1 on top. Okay, now these ones are the ones that get a little bit more tricky. So there's a couple of different ways that we can go about it. The first way that you can go about it is to go ahead and simplify everything that's inside here first, and then distribute your exponent with the power rule. Or you can distribute first and then simplify. I'm going to go ahead and show both ways. For this first one, I'm going to go ahead and simplify first. So I have 4x cubed y to the negative 2nd over 2 y to the 0 x to the 5th. I like to first look for the 0 exponents because I know those are just equal to 1. And so I notice that I have a y to the 0 right here. And so that's just really going to be 1. So I can go ahead and just cross that out so I don't have to worry about it. Next, I want to go ahead and deal with my coefficients out in front. So I have a 4 over 2. Well, I know 4 divided by 2 is just 2, so I can cross that 2 out and just leave it 2. Okay, now I have x to the 3rd over x to the 5th. Now let's think through that. When I am dividing, remember with our quotient property that we learned in earlier videos, I'm really subtracting my exponents. And so I have 5 minus 3, which is 2, And now my base is going to stay where my bigger exponent is at. Since my bigger exponent 5 is on the bottom, my x is going to stay on the bottom. And so I'm going to have an x squared. So take care of my x's. And then I have a y to the negative second power. Well, remember we don't want negative exponents, so I need to make that positive. So I need to move my y to the denominator. And so this is what I have after I simplified what's inside the parentheses. And then now from here, I can go ahead and distribute my exponent. And so I'll have 2 squared, distribute to the x to get x to the 4th, and y to the 4th. So you notice I did that with every single term. And then lastly, I can go ahead and find out what 2 squared is, and that's just 2 times 2, which is 4. And so this is my final answer. Okay, this next one I'll go ahead and show it the other way, where you can distribute your exponent first. And so with this, I am going to be multiplying every single exponent by -3. I'm going to go ahead and write in my hidden exponents of 1 first. So I notice the y doesn't have an exponent, so it's really an exponent of 1. And my 3 has an exponent of 1. And so when I distribute this, I have x to the -2 times -3 is +6. Y to the 8 times -3 is -24. And then 0 times -3 is just 0. 3 to the -3rd, x to the 3 times -3, which is -9, and then y to the -3rd. Okay, notice I do have a 0 exponent, so I can go ahead and just cross that off because that's just equal to 1. My next step is I like to go ahead and make all of my negative exponents positive, so I'm going to go ahead and move all of those. And so here I notice I have a 3 to the -3rd, so that's going to go up on top to become 3 to the 3rd. Actually, everything on the bottom is going to be moving to the top, so I have x to the 9th and y to the 3rd. And then the only thing else left on top is the x to the 6th, since that was positive. And then my y to the -24th, to make that positive, I'm going to go ahead and move that to the bottom. Now there's a couple of things I can do to simplify this further. So first I'm going to find what 3 to the 3rd is. And when I do that, that's really 3 times 3 times 3, which gets me 27. I have these two x's I can combine. So I have x to the 9th times x to the 6th. To do those, I'm going to use my product property, so I'm going to add the exponents. So 9 plus 6, I get 15. And then lastly, I can go ahead and divide out my y's. And so when I'm dividing, I'm going to subtract those exponents. So 24 minus 3, I get 21. And where the bigger exponent is at is where the base will stay. And so since the 24 is on the bottom, my y is going to stay on the bottom. And so this will become my answer.